Let's begin with EMS operations and crime scenes. You'll be responding to these, and what we need to make sure is that when we respond, what we are doing when we get there. These response activities are mainly to ensure that the patient's safety, the patient's medical care, as well as the safety for yourself and responding elements are all taken care of, but you're not there to apprehend or to start to analyze and secure the evidence at scene. Just we need to understand though we're there, and that preservation of the scene should be taken care of. So our response activities is to maintain and to provide emergency medical care to the patients. And this may include responding law enforcement, fire services, ambulance services, any other community agency that might be also corresponding to that area. When we look at these environments, crime scenes that happen in multiple areas and environments, varied situations. Some are already up there on the screen, so we can see waterways, we can see natural environments, we can see high rises and so forth. We need to keep in mind that as we respond to these environments and situations, that we think about safety first and really look at what might be going on in these environments as we respond to them. We're going to be getting a lot of information from our dispatch that we want to start to analyze prior to getting there and making sure that we have open communications back and forth. What we don't want to do is micromanage our information that's coming to us by constantly asking our dispatchers for information. Know that we're going to have probably an area where we're going to stage, know that we're going to have an area to now pick up information, and as this information comes in, you're going to have to analyze that information, then get information that you see on the environment and situation to either deploy more EMS units to your area, notify your area hospitals of the type of incident that you're at, or it may be just that you're able to take care of this scene yourself, and you can then go ahead and release responding elements to your facility, to your incident at large. In the crime scene, situations may require more of a tactical response than a general response to the medical patient or the trauma patient. In a tactical response, we're looking at really analyzing that environment, really analyzing the dispatch information, and trying to understand that maybe what is going to happen, we're going to enter into a hostile environment. And we don't necessarily train to go into these areas. We're not we're not military, we're not in the specialized response teams. We don't make up this type of, we can go in there with under armed services and full body equipment to manage these ongoing very hazardous environments. So what we want to do is take a lot of self-protective measures. This could mean taking a step back and looking at, maybe it's a biological event that we need to glove, gown, mask up. This means also protecting the vital resource, which is your ambulance and your transport unit. And if you need to, start to send that communication and information back up to your dispatch so that everyone is notified and aware of that. So it doesn't just necessarily mean that we have projectiles going downrange, projectiles whizzing overhead, and we have a lot of patients with penetrating trauma. We may be going into an area where we have clandestine labs, and these areas have volatile and toxic chemicals, and we need to be able to manage the patients coming from those situations, as well as the safety and medical resource that's required to take care of the responding elements in this tactical response. Again, we may be staging, and we may end up getting information from the incident through our dispatch. So we're getting some kind of contact and communication that's open, but it does have its stovepipe effect where not much information may be coming to us at a real time as we're still in a staging area. Once we get on scene, we need to make sure that we somehow lice up and meet up with our incident commanders or the reporting party to then determine what additional resources is required in this tactical response. I mean, remember now, self-protective posture would be to shield and protect yourself, and to stage to minimize any type of radio traffic communication so that you're not actually providing information to a hostile environment that you could be a possible target in these response to crime scenes. When we're there again, we have to augment our law enforcement agencies. This could be federal, state, county, and so forth. Your primary role in there is to respond to the patients that come from these scenes. It's not to go ahead and start inventory and categorizing, the evidence. Is not to go ahead and apprehend and to take down perpetrators. It's to maintain the medical side of these incidences and to provide not only medical care and trauma care for our patients that come out here, but also our corresponding elements, law enforcement, fire, any other public or state entities or federal entities that may be there, as well as businesses. There is evidence that may need to have a chain of custody, so we want to make sure we're doing at least some type of preservation. That means that we're not trying to trample over all of the data or all of the evidence that is there at the scene at the time that we respond. We should only need to provide and to treat our patients in a particular area, and if we're doing so in that particular area, we're going to try to minimize any damaging effects that we may have on the evidence there that we see. The last thing is to provide adequate and very thorough documentation about either how the scene looked, what our patients told us directly, and none of this is our summarizations. It's all usually in quotations, is what our patients are telling us, as the documentation will become part of a legal document in these crime scene investigations. Lastly, you will be probably called in on some of these, and so I want to make sure that your documentation is extremely thorough. We're looking at particularly, the ones that we see quite often is the abuse cases. This could be neglect of a family member or a child or an elderly person or a loved one. Not only neglect but also abuse, and we see quite a lot of these. And you'll be being pulled in as a witness for the prosecution. So make sure that you have documented everything thoroughly and use quotations